And welcome, fans, friends, and trolls alike. I'm That Southern Critic Kat 09, coming back from a 2-week break, essentially, from streaming, and we're kicking off with something that should have been done a long time ago, to be perfectly honest. That is, we are back to doing live reviews. And everybody who is either outside the US or in the US knows. Let's see here. 3 days ago was the 4th of July. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up a bit while I'm checking things on my end. So, what are your 4th of July, for those of you who celebrate 4th of July, I should ask, what are your traditions? Do you go out and have a barbecue? Do you go out and run around the park, weather permitting? Do you go out and see fireworks? Do you launch fireworks yourselves? Are you one of those who, quite frankly, have to launch fireworks 1 week before the holiday and 1 week after the holiday and annoy everybody around you? Sorry, pet peeve there. Anyway. But it doesn't matter essentially what your traditions are essentially with that, because everybody has a tradition with them when it comes to a holiday. So in my family, our tradition is to sit around, relax, and watch 1776, which is this week's live review, or this stream's live review, I should say. Now, I'm at a bit of a conundrum here, because I don't know what game to play after this. I have 3 games that are currently going that have not been completed yet, and also I want to start up something new eventually. I just have to get the picture up for it and get the border up and such for that. Anyway, so because of that, I have created a straw poll for those of you watching, to vote for tonight's game after the review. You can go there, you can vote, you can cast your vote, and we will be able to see what happens after that. The one with the majority votes will win, and that is the game that will go. If not, then I will probably get up a random number generator and set it from 1 to 4, and just let the random number generator decide on that. But anyway, let's talk about 1776. The movie. Not the year. Alright, so for those of you who are curious, this film is essentially based off of a Broadway musical that was, well, let me correct that, not Broadway musical, but a musical rendition of the book that went through, and as you can tell, it has, based on the award-winning no, I stand corrected, it says right there on the picture, Broadway musical, so I was right. This was essentially originally a Broadway musical about the creation of the Declaration of Independence. Whether or not it's based on this book of the same name, I unfortunately didn't do enough research to verify that. I will probably put that in the post version of the stream. Also, going to go ahead and let you guys know now, I do not have any clips that are prepared for this. I am going to be adding clips and steals in post. So this may not be up for a while. But anyway, celebrate a belated 4th of July, since I could not stream on the actual 4th itself. Let's take a look at 1776. Now, if you plan on watching this film later, keep in mind the film is actually almost 3 hours long, including credits. And there is actually a little bit of foul language. Not to what we are used to in this day and age. But the ones you will more likely hear are going to be, and in order to say this, swear filter is off for this review. The words you are most likely going to be hearing are going to be damn, hell, and of course, GD, because I'm not going to say that even with the swear filter off. Most of those coming from our lead, by the way. But anyway. Also, I will also note when this film came out, it came out in 1972. So, this may also... It's a film that came out in the 1970s, has not been remade, oddly enough. That's a shocker in itself, with all the other films that are starting to get remade, so... I don't know, if this one gets remade, I don't know if it will get remade or not, so... Anyway. I'm just running my mouth here at this point. Let's get on to the plot summary of the film, then I'm going to get to what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and then I'm going to end with the recommendation. I'm not going to do the show's normal judging on this. And, before anything else, is my mic still working? My mic is working, good! If I had done that entire thing without my mic working, I would have been upset. Okay, I had to check something real quick because my laptop's back over here. Also, another reason why I was off for 2 weeks. The first week I went off, I was going to work on the film review that is very delayed now. My laptop died. and I spent that weekend repairing it. And then I took last weekend as well as to work on that. Unfortunately, it is still not finished. So because I realized how long it is taking the filmed reviews to come up, I might just go ahead and just switch over. I'll have all the reviews done in this format. Anyway, on to the plot of 1776, and for me to shut up about it. Oh, me to shut up about, technical difficulties and such. Alright, so the plot synopsis of this movie, because, can't speak English here. Plot synopsis. Basically, what this film is that we see how Congress really hasn't changed in the years as John Adams tries to have them essentially get their butts in gear and make a move for independence. Of course, at this point, everyone is thoroughly exhausted of Adams saying that over and over and over again, and they ignore him. Keep in mind, this takes place 1 year after the... Oh, don't tell me I forgot that event. There we go. Education's failing there. It was 1 year after Concord and... It's Concord and something. I forgot the other half, but I do remember it was Concord and something. If somebody in the chat who is seeing this, please correct me on that, because my history... Because apparently I'm very bad at history. But yeah, so that's basically what we open up to, because everybody is thoroughly tired of Adams constantly pushing the move for independence. So Dr. Benjamin Franklin suggests that another party suggests the notion of independence, with Richard Henry Lee persuading his states to move forward by creating resolution. There we go, that's the word. They begin their move through Congress. However, there is opposition there is opposition about, 6 of the colonies do oppose the notion of independence. Mostly Dickinson of Pennsylvania, who Franklin's also delegate of Pennsylvania too, so there you go. Yeah, he is delegate of Pennsylvania. Okay. I just finished the film and I'm already beginning details. That's kind of bad there. Anyway, Dickinson and the other colonies who are against independence argue with that while they're debating, and it results in a draw. And when a draw occurs, John Hancock, who is the president of the Continental Congress, is the one who essentially breaks the tie. Now, you're probably sitting here going, okay, hold on a second here. 13 colonies. Why is there a draw?
New York abstains courteously.
So, eventually what occurs is that John Hancock essentially argues that any objecting colony would fight for England against independence along the lines of, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. What essentially happens is that Dickinson of Pennsylvania comes up and says, okay, if we are going to creates a movement to have the vote for independence be unanimous. There is no majority, everybody must vote for it. Once again, there is a resulting draw, and results in Hancock saying, I agree with this, because if we all do not vote for this, we're either going to be all for it or we're going to be all for against it. There is no middleman, there is no majority speaking for the other. Everyone has to be a part of it. Which, of course, essentially pushes the notion of independence away further. Now, what happens, I may typo my notes there, but essentially to stall for time, what Adams and Franklin do is that they move to create a committee, to create a declaration for their grievances and list out to the entire world why it is they're going for independence. Essentially, they wish to create the Declaration of Independence, as its later name. Of course, Hancock, being the tiebreaker again, because New York always abstains in the film, agrees to this, and they are given time to create the document, present it to the Congress within the first week of July. Alright, now, essentially what happens afterwards is that within the committee, it is Livingston, Franklin, Jefferson, Adams. I forgot the last guy's name. Okay, Adams. This is why I should note this down a lot better. Sherman, that's the other name. Alright. It's Adams, Franklin, Sherman, Livingston, and Jefferson. Because originally, it was going to be Richard Henry Lee who comes in, but Lee said, no, I'm going to become governor, move it to somebody else. Upon which, Jefferson is voluntold, you're going to help out, even though he wants to go home and see his wife. Now, if I can talk today. Now, the second half of the movie is essentially going over Jefferson writing the Declaration. Of course, he encounters writer's block, so Adams sends for his wife to come up to give him a little inspiration to write. While Adams and Franklin are starting to move together to see if they can have everybody else move towards the notion of independence. Some notable things that are placed in with that is that they have the Maryland delegates go to one of the battlefields and see the carnage. Is it the carnage or the graveyard? One of the two. But anyway, they have the delegates go there to see the aftermath of the war, which has Maryland go for it. And I forgot who else with him. They did, but slowly they're getting the delegates of each. They're slowly getting the delegates of each colony to go more and more and more towards independence, with Dickinson of Pennsylvania still saying no. Now, there is a scene in here. It is part of the plot. I was going to leave it out until the end, but I'll go ahead and bring it up. There's a scene where, when Jefferson presents the Declaration, right, it's being edited and such, in order for the southern states to be a part of it, they had to remove the article that was about slavery. Jefferson and Adams, of course, were against that, but what Franklin proposes is go ahead and remove the article and then save it for later, essentially. Of course, we all know history, we all know how that turned out, but they didn't know at the time, especially in this film. But anyway, they finally get it down to where they're just waiting for some of the other states to essentially agree. So the southern states have agreed. The southern states agreed. All that's essentially left is to have a full Pennsylvania agreement and New York, which I found out while rewatching this. New York's their state legislature is very, very disorganized because they never told their delegates what they wanted when they came to Continental Congress. Gee, sounds familiar in a way, doesn't it? But anyway, so after all the amendments and edits are done, the colonies, they move more to have the colonies come together and such. The New York delegates, I think, I think this is where I stopped paying attention, to be perfectly honest. Alright, so New York, of course, abstains again, because the delegates are moving in specific orders by the disorganized New York legislature. Because, to be perfectly honest, New York really need to get their act together in this film. So, the question was up, therefore, to Pennsylvania. Now, the delegation is actually pulled by Franklin's request. Franklin votes for the Declaration. Dickinson votes against it. Now, the outcome falls in the hands of James Wilson, who is always behind Dickinson's shadow. Now, Wilson always followed Dickinson's lead, but however, in this case, what Wilson does, it tips the balances, essentially, or it tips the scales. He says, you know what? Heck, put this in layman's terms, and modern-day layman's terms here. Heck with this. I don't want to be the one who says, I want to stay under England and ruins this. I'm voting for it. So Pennsylvania then moves for it. That gives 12 of 13. Now, what essentially happens there, as well, is that there is word of destruction of property for Lewis Morris, who is a part of the New York legislature. Not legislature, the delegates. My mistake there. Part of the New York delegates there. He learns from General Washington that his property has been destroyed. So because of that, he finally withdraws New York's abstention and agrees to sign the document. Alright. And what happens after that, when all that occurs, the movie ends with everybody signing the Declaration of Independence on the United States of July 4th, 1776. That was a lot sooner, a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. Anyway, that's basically the plot of 1776. Alright, so once we come from that, let's go ahead and move to what I liked about the film to what I don't like about the film. I got a lot more pluses than minuses, so let's go with minus. That's not minus. Let's go with pluses first. Okay, so I don't know if it actually popped up when I was giving the plot synopsis, but synopsis. English is hard. So while I was giving the plot, the number one thing I have to say who my favorite character is Ben Franklin. I thoroughly love how Ben Franklin is portrayed in this film. He is a wisecracker. He's a subtle wisecracker, but the way he does it is just astounding. One of the things in one of the Congress scenes is when Dickinson is challenging him, Franklin is just looking at the screen, because one of the things that Franklin says is that,
"Oh, now what's so terrible about being called an Englishman? The English don't seem to mind."
Nor would I. were I given the full rights of an Englishman. But to call me one without those rights is like calling an ox a bull. He's thankful for the honor, but he'd much rather have restored what's rightfully his.
I forgot to put... I should go ahead and probably mention there is some subtle adult humor in this, too, if you did not catch what I meant by that. But no, Ben Franklin to me is the best character in this film. He is a complete and utter riot. Just to sit back and watch him. The way that literally that he acts is just... I don't think I can say just watch the film solely for Ben Franklin, because he is amazing. He's a downright hilarious with this, in the film itself. Another thing that I do like John Adams. John Adams is essentially the I am the tiger. Not I am the tiger. I almost said I am the tiger for some reason. He is essentially the character that will turn around and say, "Okay, I'm the loud, obnoxious character where I do what I say, yada yada yada." But when I said this is the character who probably would, in a way, swear the most. He kind of is the one who swears the most. In a way. See, he is the one who basically would turn around and he's the one who will basically say anything along the lines of with Congress essentially being crazy. He literally compares Congress to one of the plagues of Egypt in this film. And one of the other reasons why I thoroughly love John Adams is because of his opening line to Congress, which I have memorized, and I will recite to you. This is why the first two lines of his open dialogue. Unfortunately, as much as I love to play the entire clip for you, I cannot because, YouTube's Content ID bot. So, anyway, for those of you who are here live, you're going to hear me recite it. If not, you're going to see a clip of it. So, from the beginning, for John Adams within the first 10 minutes of the film, this is what he says about Congress.
I have come to the conclusion that one useless man is called a disgrace, that two are called a law firm, and that three or more become a Congress. And by God, I have had this Congress.
That sums up Congress in itself. Like, literally, that is my favorite quote of the entire film, and it happens in the first act. Yeah, that's something I just love about it. Another thing that I thoroughly love is the songs and such in this film. In case you haven't noticed, with my background, I do love music. One of the things I do thoroughly love about this as well, other than the fact it is a musical, is the fact that, hey, this is something I can get behind of. So, the very first opening song, technically it's not really an opening song, it's the overture where it's playing for the opening credits, which is very full patriotic. You can hear actually a mix of some of the other songs as well within it. But immediately after John Adams gives his whole spiel, you hear everyone in Congress stand up in music and basically scream at him to shut up. The song's title is called Shut Up. Sit Down, John. Not Shut Up. It's called Sit Down, John. Which literally is them telling him to be quiet because it's ridiculously hot in Philadelphia. One of the number one lines they always say is, and I'm so sorry I killed your ears there. Basically, open up a window because it's so hot. And then, of course, within the song, there's a debate. No, if you open up the window, there's going to be flies. All the while, John Adams is walking around saying,
I say vote yes, vote yes, vote for independence.
Of course, the very end is my favorite thing with the very end of the opener of that song is one of my favorite things. Because I forgot the character is, but one of the delegates stands up and says, "Will someone shut that man up?" Upon which Adams turns around and looks at him and goes,
Never! Never!
But yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes. Another favorite song there is the third song. Let's go and talk the second. Immediately after that, when John Adams steps outside and he's going through a communication between him and his wife, which is where the scene blurs while they're talking and singing at the same time. That's to reflect the letters that they're sending back and forth between each other, because this is 1776. They don't have the technology we have. And one of the number one things that I love, and it's going on another thing as well, is I do love the writing of the film too. Well, it's called Piddle, Twiddle, and something else. I forgot the name of that song. It's Piddle, Twiddle, Resolve. There we go. It's Piddle, Twiddle, and Resolve. So, essentially, John Adams is going around complaining about how Congress is essentially stalling and not acting You know, not acting like decent human, well, not like decent human beings. You know, just sitting around and being lazy and procrastinating. And then afterwards, we see Abigail and Adams. Abigail and John, there you go. Abigail and John communicate with each other, which one of the number one things is that he said is, why haven't you not given us our saltpeter? Upon which Abigail Adams turns on and says, we would love to, but we need one more thing. We need pins. And I'm not talking about the pens we write with like today. I'm talking about pin needles, like they used to sew. So, one of my favorite scenes in the entire thing is that they're both coming up, walking to each other while they're talking. Abigail keeps, and John is saying saltpeter. Abigail says pins. Saltpeter, pins, saltpeter, pins. And then he comes like, they're really close together. He says saltpeter. And it's just her posture and the way she says pins.
Peter.
Pins.
Peter.
Pins.
Peter.
Pins.
Peter.
Pins.
Done, madam, done.
Subtlety, thy name is 1776. And dang this cord. I need to really invest in a wireless headset. So after that, we move on to the third song, which is, I was seriously thinking of sitting down and having this as a film review. Could never get the time to get the script out. But if I had this film, if I had it as a sit-down filmed review, the joke literally writes itself. This next song is where we see Richard Henry Lee come up from where Franklin had called for him to be the one to request independency. And the song that comes up is The Lees of Old Virginia, which is a very, very catchy song. And it's full of puns. Simply because his last name is Lee. Traditional, Lee, courageous.
Social, Lee. Political, Lee. Financial, Lee. Natural, Lee. Internal, Lee. External, Lee. Fraternal, Lee. Eternal, Lee.
You see what I mean? Even in post, I'll play a clip that shows all the puns in there. But the number one joke that I would place in there is one of the, I can't remember if it's the actual chorus, but somewhere on there is the actual line. You get a Lee, and you get a Lee. Everybody gets a Lee. I just knocked something off my desk. Essentially, yes, you get a Lee, and you get a Lee. Everybody gets a Lee when it comes to the Lees of Old Virginia. And then after that, Lee, he will run off and such. The next song, after a while, there is not a song until after the committee is created for, don't tell me, I forgot what it's called. Committee for the Declaration of Independence. And what happens there is they're all trying to figure out who's going to write the Declaration of Independence. Another favorite song. Because everybody says, oh, John, you can do it.
Is that so? Well, if I'm the one to do it, they'll run their quill pens through it. I'm obnoxious and disliked, you know that's so.
Yeah, once again, another clip from the film's going to be played there. But it's another song that I thoroughly love. There's also the dancing and such that occurs in it. After that, however, the songs do start getting a little hazy for me because, to be perfectly honest, once you get past the song "But Mr. Adams," which is the one where they're trying to figure out who's going to write the Declaration, that's when I start losing interest in the film. This is where we're going to start getting into the negatives and such. I personally like the first third of the film. With the music, with the high energy and everything, it peters out afterwards. That's when my interest is lost. Literally, I am very content to stop watching the film after the musical sequence for But Mr. Adams. I am content to stop watching the film there because I know how it's going to resolve in the end. And I cannot hold my focus through it. Another thing that I have to say as well about the film, let me cap the big thing, because that is the thing with me, is that, yeah, I personally cannot willingly keep myself invested for the other remainder half of the film. Because then it just starts getting boring to me. And one of the things I actually have to say that goes in regards to that is the Congress scenes. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. If I wanted to have if I wanted to see how Congress is, I would watch C-SPAN or whatever they use to show how Congress works in this day and age. It literally has not changed. I know this is just a production of what it might have been back then, but yeah. Literally, there is no difference in how they act. There's no difference between how they act, because they will procrastinate, they will debate, they will argue. The only thing that's essentially a big difference between the two, acting aside, is that, well, let's see here. Today's Congress is much bigger because we have 50 states, not 13 colonies. We also have, well, I'm just going to go ahead and be blunt about it. It's not all white men for today. Probably majority, but it's not all white men in Congress. So, yeah. That's literally the big difference. There's more people, it's not all white men. But they still act the exact same thing. That's why I love John Adams' opening statement about Congress so much. It still is a thing to this day. It just shows you how much humanity has not changed. Or in this case, how our government has how Congress has not changed in over 200 years at this point. There's another thing. This one is a nitpicky thing, but this always bothers me, and unfortunately it comes in the first act that I thoroughly love. There is a scene directly after Piddle, Twiddle, and Resolve where you see John Adams is walking out of Independence Hall. It is a wide shot. You can barely see John Adams, and it just bothers me. I'm sitting there going, why did you have it that wide? You can't even see him walking out. You can't really make out the tiny figure walking out. Why did you make it that wide? You can't see mess. But it's just that shot. That one shot always bothers me in the first third. Not first half, I should say now. I'm completely okay with the rest of it, but that one shot bothers me. And the final thing I have to say that's a negative for me is that it's New York abstaining constantly. Like, okay, we get it. You guys don't want to do things because you're not getting anything from your state legislator. Quite frankly, send a little message up to your state legislator, tell them, get your butts in gear and actually tell us what you want us to do. Throat's going dry there. But no, just get your butts in gear and actually do something. Resolve something. Quit abstaining and causing a lockdown. And there's also the fact that when they abstain, I'm going to have to move back to do this. So give me a sec. So for this, you wondering how they abstain. New York does this. But in order for me to stay firm, it's going to be a little stuff. But they always stand up. He has his hands on his cane like this. And he always says, Dear Secretary, or Mr. President, or, yeah, I think it is Mr. President, I apologize. Mr. President, New York abstains courteously. Yeah, you guys can courteously abstain and just, I'm sorry, I just do not like New York constantly abstaining when they're causing a lockdown. Anyway, alright, so that's all the negativities of the film out of the way. Now we're going to go up to the big thing. Would I recommend this film for anyone to see, especially for, this time of year? Yes! In fact, Swirl filter still off. Hell yes! I will recommend it. I would just recommend the first half of it personally, but if you want to see the whole film, yeah, go ahead. If you want to see something that's kind of fantastic, it's not really historical as such, but if you want to see something where it's like, okay, this is pretty much how we think Congress would act and realize it hasn't changed this day and age, go for it. You want to hear possibly the best line that sums up Congress? Go for it. I recommend this film. But hey, that's just me. Alright, and that concludes the live review portion of the live stream. I really need to do this a lot more. That was only 30 minutes. Alrighty, so with that out of the way, I am going to check the straw poll and see if there's been anything in regards to the game that's coming up after this. Which, if there is nothing, then I am going to get random number generator. And random number generator yields number 3. We are continuing with Stardew Valley. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get everything switched over to Stardew Valley. So I'm going to go on intermission while I do so. I'm going to stop the recording. For those of you who came for the review portion of the stream, I do thank you for coming. For those of you who are here for the gaming portion of the stream, sit tight. We're about to continue. We're about to resume with Stardew Valley. So just give me a good 5. Probably won't take that long. So just give me some time so that way I can put this thing on intermission, and we will be resuming with Stardew Valley. Alright, so I'll see you guys in about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how long it takes. Be right back.